Not even 2 months after the release of Superman, we have already gotten an official announcement for the sequel. Christ, James Gunn works fast. Man of Tomorrow will release on June 9th, 2027, which is under 2 years after Superman. With the exception of the special event that was Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame releasing just a year apart, this has gotta be the quickest turnaround for a sequel in comic book movie history, under 2 years. On its own that feels quick, but it's especially blatant when you consider the other DC movie releasing that year, The Batman Part 2, which is coming out after Man of Tomorrow, despite the original movie coming out 3 years before Superman. I am beyond impressed. James Gunn is an absolute writing machine, and somehow also very consistently high quality at that. Between The Batman and The Batman Part 2, James Gunn released Guardians of the Galaxy The Holiday Special, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Creature Commandos, Superman, Peacemaker Season 2, and now also Man of Tomorrow. Insane output and a very high level of quality. The title Man of Tomorrow is also kind of hilarious since it was easily the most commonly used title for a theoretical Man of Steel sequel, aside from Man of Steel 2, which of course never got made. This might also be the reason why they removed Woman of Tomorrow from the Supergirl title, although Supergirl is definitely cleaner, and James Gunn has said he doesn't like colons in superhero movie titles. Regardless, it's a perfect title. I much prefer the Man of Tomorrow nickname over the Man of Steel because it focuses on his personality and his ideals rather than his powers, but also it could be associated with another character. Based on the artwork shown, and it specifically being David Corenswet and Nicholas Hoult, who, alongside James Gunn, posted artwork announcing the movie, it seems like the movie will feature Superman and Lex Luthor in the main roles. James Gunn said this isn't exactly Superman 2, which might have been a semantics thing since that's not the movie's title, so technically it is not Superman 2, it's Man of Tomorrow. Or it might point to the movie not being a strict Superman movie, meaning maybe he's not the main character, or at the very least not the only main character. Considering the art and even the title, Lex Luthor might be the protagonist or of equal protagonist role as Superman. The title fits Lex because while the world considers Superman to be the Man of Tomorrow, Superman doesn't really consider himself to be. Lex, however, considers himself to be the Man of Tomorrow, the person who, had it not been for Superman, would have led humanity to greatness and usher in a new age of prosperity. Think back to the end of All-Star Superman, where Lex says exactly this.
If it wasn't for you, I could have saved the world.
If it had mattered to you, Luthor, you could have saved the world years ago.
I'm going to guess that the movie will take inspiration from the finale of All-Star Superman, amongst other things. In the artwork, Superman is wearing his suit from the movie, but I would be shocked if it doesn't get some kind of update, like either removing the collar, some of the lines, or making the yellow a bit less orange and a bit more yellow. Lex, meanwhile, is wearing his battle suit from the comics, which has never been done in a live-action movie. Obviously, the Raptors were a prototype of this, and we saw versions of the suit in TV shows like Supergirl and Superman and Lois, but never quite 100% accurate. Like Supergirl was close, but the fact that he wore a helmet made it pretty different from the comics. Each artwork has a slightly different version of the suit, with ever so slightly different color schemes like shades of green and purple, generally different design patterns, and different sizes. It's possible Lex will go on to wear all 3 of these suits throughout the movie, or maybe Gunn told the artist to pick any Lexo suit from the comics and they each chose a different one. This is likely because they haven't yet picked the design for the suit, and if I had to choose, I'd go for the size of this version since I think the others are either too slim or too bulky, but I wouldn't use the design of this one since it really reminds me of Kang from the MCU. Instead, I'd use the design shown in this art, which is a bit more simplified and a bit nicer. Often, Lex's suit is powered by kryptonite. With Metamorpho out of his control and there apparently not being any kryptonite left on Earth, something could definitely bring kryptonite to Earth, possibly a meteorite, but maybe a villain with connections to Krypton, like Brainiac. It seems like from the artwork, Lex and Superman are going to be fighting each other, being unlikely allies, and also teaming up with each other against a bigger bad. I'm sure Lex will break out of prison and be a menace, but I do hope this doesn't focus on Lex being the main villain again. Lex is great, easily the best recurring comic book villain of all time, meaning he can appear in every Superman story and a lot of Justice League stories, and it makes a lot of sense. But just because he appears doesn't mean he always needs to be the main villain, especially since Superman's rogues gallery is so underutilized and full of untapped potential. Brainiac being the obvious prime candidate. Then, with Kryptonite being involved, you can create Titano or a new version of Metallo, or maybe even bring Bloodsport to see him shooting Superman, which in the DCEU happened before the Suicide Squad. Maybe in the DCU, it'll happen after, in Man of Tomorrow. The title Man of Tomorrow has been used before in an animated movie called Superman Man of Tomorrow, in which Parasite was the villain and Lobo had a big role, as well as a comic series called Superman Man of Tomorrow, which features a vast array of different villains, and Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, which featured many villains as well, but the main one was actually Mr. Mxyzptlk. I could see the comic being used as some inspiration for this movie, and Mr. Mxyzptlk definitely fits James Gunn, but also he might be a bit much. Beyond Superman and Lex, we also have confirmation of Isabella Merced's return as Hawkgirl, which means we could assume that the rest of the Justice Gang are returning as well. Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, and Maxwell Lord at the very least, but considering the interviews in Peacemaker, I'm sure they will have added more members. One possible candidate is John Stewart. Aaron Pierre commented on these posts, which sparked debates over the possibility of him appearing. Personally, it seems very likely to me, considering Lantern's releases next year, John Stewart being placed as the Lantern of the DCU, and not having any other confirmed upcoming appearances. I think it's very likely he will appear, and maybe he's going to be recruited into the Justice Gang by Guy Gardner on Lanterns. Other actors also commented, like Skylar Gisondo, who will certainly reappear as Jimmy Olsen, Michaela Hoover, who will certainly return as Cat Grant, Titania Piper, who played one of Lex's assistants, Grant Gustin, hinting at him being used as the Flash of the DCU, but also he's known to be a Superman fan in general, so it's more likely just that, Ben Davis, who voiced Rupert Thorne in Creature Commandos and is prevalent in James Gunn's projects. I doubt Thorne will ever appear in live action again, so he can maybe play someone else. He would actually be pretty good casting for Bebo Babowski, a character I would love to see in this movie. Beyond all of the characters I've already mentioned, I'd like to see Jonathan and Martha Kent, Supergirl, Krypto, Lois Lane, Perry White, Steve Lombard, Ron Troop, Eve Tessmacher, and the Superman robots to all return. Maybe also Rick Flag Sr., maybe Lobo, while introducing new members of the Superman supporting cast, like the aforementioned Bebo Babowski, as well as Dan Turpin and Maggie Sawyer. And maybe, since Lex Luthor is in Belle Reve, we could have some sort of character from Belle Reve have some sort of cameo or maybe even a small role, like one or two of the Creature Commandos. What Man of Tomorrow can be is a sort of crossover between all of the projects that led up until that point, except I guess for the Batman related projects like Clayface. Superman and Supergirl could appear, you have Green Lantern appearing, you could maybe have a Creature Commando, it connects to Belle Reve, and maybe even Peacemaker can appear. There could be a small crossover event now, a slightly bigger crossover event after that, and then that all leads into the large crossover event that is the Justice League. Whatever ends up happening, I am super excited, and specifically am so pumped this is happening so quickly. James Gunn is an absolute machine who might just be the best possible person to spearhead this universe, especially since he makes content and really good quality content so quickly. And 2027 also is looking to be a fantastic year for comic book movies, between Superman and the Batman Part 2 with DC, and then over at Marvel you have Beyond the Spider-Verse and Avengers Secret Wars. Exciting stuff. Let me know your thoughts about Man of Tomorrow in the comments down below, and thanks so much for watching.